is February 22nd. Today is February 22nd. It is 10:01, and I am calling the Curriculum Committee meeting to order. We have all board members on the committee present, and I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second. Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 4-0. I need a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 25th.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
4-0, unanimous. Okay, and Dr. Rogers, gonna send it to you.
Thank you. Good morning, board members. We're happy to be here at our curriculum meeting today. I did want to welcome Dr. Houlihan. Dr. Tyson is here as well, and I believe Dr. Schleider is coming. There he is. And they will share information with us in just a little bit. I would like to start today with the first action item with summer program offerings, and so we'll get the presentation going. There it goes. All right, so I'm here to discuss the UCPS Summer 2023 program offerings. I'll be reviewing Summer Reading Camp, Summer Bridge Academy, Summer Accelerator Program, and the timeline that we have for planning purposes. So I'll start this morning with Summer Reading Camp, the program requirements. This comes through the Read to Achieve Reading Camp legislation that was approved in July 2012. The program consists of components for improving reading proficiency for students in grades 1, 2, and 3. Reading camps are designed to provide additional reading instruction for students at no cost. Attendance is not mandatory, but parents are strongly encouraged to enroll students who are eligible. And Summer Reading Camp provides a minimum of 72 hours of programming. So when we look at the details for Reading Camp, who will attend, it is our first, second, and third graders who have demonstrated that they're not at grade level reading proficiency. And this is a program designed to help our non-proficient readers gain those skills necessary so that they can read at grade level by the end of their third grade year. And this work is aligned with the science of reading. This will occur at various elementary schools across our district, and it will happen during the weeks of June 19th, June 26th, and July 10th, a Monday through Thursday schedule, and there will be no camp during the week of the 4th of July. And this camp is to ensure that every student reads again at or above grade level by the end of third grade and continues to progress in reading proficiency. So that's the overview of Reading Camp. And now we'll move on to Summer Bridge Academy program requirements. This comes from ESSER 2, known as PRC 176, and is for students in grades 2, 5, and 8. So the Summer Bridge Academy will help fund high quality, evidence-based in-person learning and enrichment summer programs for students in need of academic supports to close learning gaps, and those that our district or our PSU identify as having been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And again, we focus on those key transitional grades. So we're looking at the second graders moving into third grader, the fifth graders moving into sixth grade, and the eighth graders moving into ninth grade. The program will also respond to the academic health and safety needs of students. So approved programs will provide a minimum of 50 hours of programming, of which no less than 25 are dedicated to academic learning acceleration. And academic learning acceleration refers to appropriate grade level content and standards. So the remaining hours of the program will be left to our discretion at the district or the PSU, and it is expected that we provide intensive instruction, and it'll be led by highly effective teachers in small group settings. So when we look at the details.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Is this required?
It's like the Reading Camp, we strongly encourage, but there's not a required mandatory attendance that goes with it.
Can we require it?
So Can we require for students to come? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
We can't make it mandatory, is my understanding, but we can do lots of communication with, from the district level, from the school level, teacher to parent level, to strongly encourage that students that we identify that will benefit will attend.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before I move on? Okay. So when we look at the details for Summer Bridge Academy, again, this is for students in those key transitional grades, 2nd grade, 5th grade, 8th grade, moving up to that next year. It's a program designed to help students in critical transition grades to develop those foundational skills necessary for that next academic year to help them transition. It'll happen at various elementary and middle schools in our district, and it will occur during the weeks of July 17th, July 24th, and July 31st, and that is also a Monday through Thursday schedule. And the purpose of this is to increase academic outcomes and offer the enrichment opportunities for our students. So the last program I'd like to overview today is the Summer Accelerator Program. This is also through ESSER 2, known as PRC 177. And this is for middle school and high school students. And we're really excited about the possibilities with the Summer Career Accelerator Program. And it will help to fund high quality, evidence-based learning and workforce-aligned summer programs for students deemed in need of supports related to work-based experiences that have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic as well. So this program will also respond to the academic health and safety needs of our students. And we will align the program outcomes with local workforce priorities while engaging with students, our parents, our teachers, our district leadership, also our community partners and other stakeholders are involved to deepen our community connections, which is an exciting part of the camp, and to increase support and program buy-in. We will identify and collaborate with 1 to 2 community partners as well through the Career Accelerator Program. And then I'll share the details of this program and see if you have any questions about it. So Summer Accelerator is for our middle and high school students that are in need of programming related to those work-based experiences. It's a program designed to provide career exploration for middle and high school students and expose them to those work-based experiences. It'll also happen at various middle and high schools across our district, and it will occur during the weeks of June 19th, June 26th, July 10th, and July 24th with the Monday through Thursday schedule. We will not hold camp during the week of the 4th of July, and multiple camp offerings will occur throughout the summer. And again, this is to promote that deeper understanding of local career opportunities and expand knowledge learned in career and tech education courses. Are there any questions about Summer Accelerator? Very exciting opportunities for our students. This next slide is just an overview of the camps, the 3 camps kind of side by side. I've already reviewed this information, and so I'd like to move on to our timeline to share the timeline. We've already been working through our communication components with cabinet level planning meetings. We've prepped our principals about what may be coming for summer programs. We're working with our department heads and looking at director meetings. We'll move forward with board approval into some individual departmental meetings. We will be looking for our site coordinators and the prospective teachers, and that work will occur in March. As far as the application process goes, we'll open it up for our site coordinators the week of March 13th. We'll open it for prospective teachers to apply the first week of March, and candidates apply through Frontline. We will provide, this is another exciting part, we will provide a robust orientation and training component to our summer programs. There will be leadership training. It'll be required for site administrators. These trainings will be embedded in our AP Academy as well, starting in March, and additional trainings occur and they are scheduled as needed. We are working on family notification, the timeline for that pending board approval. So that is our timeline. At this time, I'd like to open it up for any questions you may have.
Good morning. I have a couple of questions. I'd like to go back to the question Ms. Heintel brought up about making it mandatory. So since we cannot make it mandatory, how are we encouraging families to take advantage? Well, what plans do you all have in place, or we have in place, to really encourage families to take advantage of these opportunities?
That's a great question. So obviously we'll work at the district level with marketing and communication, the school level, the teacher level, but we have a successful history with our summer programming and the camp environment. So we promote and we have history of the engaging part to the learning experiences. And the feedback from previous camps is the teachers love it, the students love it. So we have that history to be able to draw on now because we have done these camps in the past, and creating the culture of camp environment with engaging, relevant experience for our kids is what I believe will draw students in and families to want to participate.
So let's say if a student starts out in the program and they do not follow up throughout the week, do we have a waiting list of students that after so many absences we can go back to that waiting list and say, okay, the camp is still open? Or are we able to do that, or no?
I believe we are able to do that. And if we have absences during the camp, then we make phone calls. Like, we're ready for you. We want you in our camp. So we have a lot of communication strategies and plans to keep the attendance going. And then we would have a waiting list if needed.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. So all of these camps, are they only open to students that we identify?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so if there's open spots available after that, are other students eligible to apply?
That is something that we can take a look at and see if we can create that plan.
Okay, because the Career Accelerator camps, we did that last year and there was a huge demand for some of them. And so I'm hoping that we're working on maybe being able to meet that demand this summer.
Yeah,
so the same.
I'm happy to share that Brian Davis, our director of career and tech ed, is expanding the opportunities this year. Again, he has last year's camp to draw upon. And so he's looking at ideally more proposals from teachers to be able to provide more camps, and through partnerships, he's looking at more opportunities as well.
And when you finalize the details as far as like when families are being notified, and can you send even just an email to the board just so that we know? Because a lot of times we'll see families that are confused about the process, and that way we would know, this is the date that the info is going out, this is when you'd hear back, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Happy to do it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you said that this is not required, but it's strongly encouraged. Why, just out of curiosity, why can't it be, I guess, required or somewhat mandatory for, especially for like students, particularly like younger students, maybe who are having a difficulty reading and are not in their grade level, but we're still moving them on, because what do we do in that case? I mean, can it be, why can't we require that for, like I said, particularly for those students that are very behind, but we're moving them on, but yet they're not reading or something. They don't have that literacy. What do we do in that case?
Yes, ma'am. So it's not mandated by the Department of Public Instruction. So we work within those guidelines. And so that is our all-out effort to share how students will benefit and to work with those families one-on-one. And ultimately, it's the parent's decision to decide if the student comes to reading camp or not. And so we work diligently and work with each and every family to have the students come and receive what they need with summer programming.
But aren't we still like kind of moving students on though? I mean, even though they're not proficient or they're not at their grade level for reading, but we're still moving them on.
Well, and summer programming is one level of support for students. So throughout the year, when students are identified as, let's say, non-proficient with the reading camp, summer programs is one support, and we add a lot of other supports and interventions throughout the year. And any kind of decisions regarding retention are made by the school level, the principal, and then those decisions are made, and the next school year supports would continue.
Hey, I have a question. So DPI says that it's not mandatory, but does that mean that we can't make it mandatory?
Yeah.
I would have to look into that as an option. I'm happy to do that.
I don't know if that would get more people to the camps and stuff to help the kids to be on grade level.
Okay, I'll look into that.
So let me ask you this question, Ms. Hintel. If we could, how could we make it mandatory? I'm not opposed to it.
I think it's just wording, right?
Okay, got you.
I mean, we can't physically make them go, right? But it's kind of like school's mandatory. So instead of saying we strongly encourage it, we say you're required to do it. So I think it's just words.
Okay.
I'll look into that.
Because if they're borderline being retained, couldn't we say this is your opportunity to potentially be promoted to the next grade if you attend the camp?
Yeah, especially when you're notifying, when you're letting the parents know anyway. I mean, I can't imagine a parent wanting their child.
I think it's a question of communication in our practice, right? So at the end of the year, parents who have children who may be at risk of not being promoted, or we require them to come have a promotion retention conference with the teacher, the principal, or the AP or the counselor. And that may be a conversation we have with our principals on when you have those meetings with these parents. You can use words like strongly attend, but we also we may want to ump the ante a little bit with the requirement to be promoted. I mean, that just might be another discussion that we need to have.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's true, but wording too is a big deal there, because we can't have our students, I mean, I'm not trying to knock anyone, but you can't have a student being promoted and they're not even on grade level. I mean, that's not, we don't want that either. I mean, we're a high performing district. We can't have that. So
I'm happy to look into that further.
thank you.
Any other questions? I need a motion to send this to the full board.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 4-0. Okay, EOC, EOG summer program retesting proposal.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So good morning, board members. How's everyone this morning?
Good.
We would like to come before you today with a proposal for what DPI titles summer program proposal, but essentially, not to confuse it with what Dr. Rogers just shared, it is actually what previously was called the EOC and EOG retesting. Of course, I've got Dr. Slider, who is in charge of research and accountability. It falls into his shop with state testing, and we'll share a proposal with you today. But just remember, if approved, this will be an action item to take to the full board. But if approved, this opportunity for additional remediation and then retesting for children that are not proficient on their EOCs or EOGs must occur outside of the academic calendar. So we cannot, of course, have this type of remediation or retesting during the school year. So it would have to happen on the dates that we proposed in the document that we provided. But at this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Slider. He's going to talk through some of the parameters of retesting outside the school year with remediation. And of course, then we'll answer any questions that you may have before we complete this presentation.
Thank you. Good morning. I apologize. I had technology issues in my office, which is why I'm standing over Dr. Tyson's shoulders. Again, my apologies. Our plan for the summer retesting has a remediation day scheduled on Monday, June 12th. That's the first work day right after the students' last school day. The following 2 days after that, Tuesday, June 13th and Wednesday, June 14th, would then be the 2 retesting days. These 2 days are also work days, although 2 of them are optional for teachers. The plan gives the schools 2 days for retesting following the day of remediation. But just keep in mind, though, that there is a 10-day window for testing at the end of the school year, and schools do get their regular end-of-year testing scores as early as possible in that window. So it gives them a chance to also provide remediation for kids during the non-testing days in that window, which means that that Monday is not the only day that they're getting remediation for retesting on Tuesday and or Wednesday. If the plan is approved, remediation and retesting will be available for all students in 3rd grade through high school for each of the EOGs and the EOCs, with the exception of 3rd grade reading. Everything having to do with 3rd grade reading goes through the Read to Achieve legislation, where there's a entirely different summer program, as Dr. Rogers had just gone over. Those 3rd graders, though, they can retest in the area of math. That is allowed. For each of the 3 days in the plan, the remediation day and the 2 days of retesting, just like this past summer, transportation department will provide transportation for students, and the child nutrition department will provide meals for students. Since these 3 days are work days on our calendar, one's required and 2 are optional, there should be teachers in the buildings. That was not a problem at all last year for principals to find teachers, even on the optional work days. That makes child nutrition and transportation the only 2 real expenses that we would see from the plan. The finance department has set aside funds in the amount of $100,000 for the summer retesting program. Last summer, the combination of transportation and child nutrition was just less than that, less than half of that.
Okay.
As a rationale for why we would like to implement this plan, last summer, the board approved a similar plan. And during retesting last summer, we re-administered 3,126 assessments, EOGs and EOCs. Of those, 697 or 22.3% were scored as proficient. Some of the kids scoring as high as level 4 and level 5 after scoring non-proficient on regular administration. With regard to student benefits, the proficient scores on retesting do replace their non-proficient scores in their student record, and the students then go into the summer and into the next grade level knowing that they passed their end-of-year assessments from the previous year. I'm sure that's a huge confidence booster for kids going into the next school year. With regard to benefits to the district, including retesting data, UCPS increased its overall academic proficiency last year by 1.2 percentage points, 1.6 in the area of reading and 1.2 in the area of math. As you probably know, UCPS was ranked number 2 in the state last year with regard to overall proficiency. If you would remove that 1.2% increase, as if we hadn't done any retesting, we would have been number 4 in the state. So that 1.2% increase, although small, it did do a lot for us as a district as a whole. When you look at individual schools, we had 26 schools increase their school performance grade numerical score, one school by 5 percentage points. With the school performance grade letter grade being on a 15-point scale, we saw 5 schools whose numerical increase fell right on the border between letter grades and ended up with a school performance letter grade that was higher than their original one with the addition of retesting. We had 1 school go from an F to a D. We had 3 schools go from a C to a B. And we had 1 school go from a B to an A just by adding the retesting data in.
Ms. Hyde, do you have a question?
I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
So I noticed that June 12th is required for students, right? So are they required to retest, or can they make up their mind whether they want to do that?
So Ms. Heitel, the 12th is required for staff, not students.
It says,
okay. So it would be the remediation day. And of course, this opportunity would be provided to students who were not proficient on the EOC or EOG, but would not be required. We would make them aware that this opportunity existed for the remediation and then the retesting, but it would not be required. So we couldn't force them to come in to take the EOC or EOG again. It would be similar to the conversation that we had earlier We would want schools who have a personal relationship with these families to reach out, to share the information, to encourage, of course, the remediation opportunity to help the kids maybe sharpen a few skills to come back in and then to be successful. We try not to put a great deal of high pressure on our students to come back in, but of course, we do want to make them aware and to encourage them if they so choose to come in.
So we talked about the accountability for the district. What's for it for the kids?
So Dr. Slider alluded to earlier that, if I'm not proficient, let's say on 4th grade math, I come in on the 13th and retake the assessment. Of course, the state of North Carolina issues an updated individual student report to the student through the parent portal, and then their academic record would be updated to show that they were proficient on 4th grade math, using that example. We have really a running record of test scores throughout a kid's schooling career, and that record would then show that they were proficient in 4th grade as opposed to not proficient previously.
But what does it mean to not be proficient? What happens? Nothing,
it just means that they're not proficient on the assessment that was provided by the state of North Carolina.
Okay.
Specific to the standards that were taught in the 4th grade with math.
Gotcha.
Yes, ma'am. It's not
I
punitive in any way.
I thought that June 12th was required for students. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think, Ms. Heichel, the way I read that is, if a parent says, yes, my child will retest, then we say to the parent, then they're required to come in for the 1 day of remediation, which is on the 12th.
Okay.
They may still come in for the remediation day and never come to actually take the test. I mean.
And we have had that happen.
Question for Dr. Slider. I know you mentioned about 26 schools had an increase. How many of those schools came from District 1?
I have the list of schools, but I don't have a list of which ones are in the district, but I can definitely get that to you.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. What are the hours of the day that they're attending for these days?
So one thing that's always tricky when we're outside the normal school year, of course, is transportation. So generally the way this works is once a kid is not proficient, we go ahead and communicate with the families to see, one, are they going to participate in this programming? And then two, do they need transportation? Once we have that information, our transportation department routes and provides the transportation routes to pick the students up. Typically, it's a slightly later start in the morning, just because, of course, we don't have a full slate of buses and drivers available to run those routes. And then we run the remediation through lunch and then dismiss. But it really is logistical based upon the transportation and child nutrition. It's not necessarily a full 7.5 hour day.
But I mean, it still is like a 9 to 1 or something like that?
Potentially, yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I was looking at my calendar. Do we not have a conflict ever with graduations? I realize it's not graduates doing this, but with teachers being there for the remediation and, any kind of, a lot of staff attends graduations.
Correct. Most staff do attend graduations at the high school level, so we have to be flexible at that point in time. So for instance, if we have a school that's graduating at 8 a.m., we may start the remediation after the graduation completes for that school, and then of course provide child nutrition services and then send them home. If they have an afternoon graduation or evening graduation, of course, it's not really impactful. The biggest challenge for the high schools is the fact that they test the last 5 days of the school year, whereas elementary and middle, they get their scores back earlier. And so really, we just get those scores as quickly as we can. We reach out to families. Typically in the past, the transportation department has had a Google Doc that we put kids in. Are they going to come to remediation or retesting? Yes. Do they need transportation? Yes. Then we enter their address and they would route it. But we definitely ask our high schools to work around graduation, and we give priority to graduation.
If a student didn't come for their EOGs, can they then go to this and take their EOGs, or is this only for retest?
So
We had an
basically,
issue last year about this.
right, I'm well aware we had a few kids that did not show up for retesting or for testing. Yes, ma'am. So initially, that would be their primary administration during the makeup window that the state allots for kids.
Okay.
So we have to get that initial, and there is no opt-out for the initial administration. It is required by the state. We have parents oftentimes ask for an opt-out. There is no opt-out. We have a letter that we send to those parents and those students. But of course, the retesting is optional.
Okay, and funding, is this ESSER funding?
So we've done retesting back when I was doing research and accountability prior to ESSER funding. I can't speak specifically to what pot of money is allocated. I do know we've always had a line item. That's something that we could get Ms. McClam to follow up and share. I do know we've traditionally allocated $100,000, but last year we only spent half of that. And of course, you can imagine the bulk is transportation, child nutrition.
It depends on how many kids come, right? Yep.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Green.
Oh, I'm sorry. You want to go, Sarah?
No, go ahead.
Okay. And forgive me if I'm still, fairly new, so I'm curious on this. I have some questions. So the EOGs are required by who now? Is it by the state, by the district?
Correct.
Because I guess I'm kind of confused. If we have EOGs, but what's the purpose of iReady then? If they're testing their proficiency, isn't that the same thing? I'm just curious.
Right. So the EOCs are a part of the testing program with the Department of Public Instruction, of course, and those scores produce school performance grade for the classifications, the A through F grading for schools. So those are required by the state of North Carolina.
The EOGs.
EOGs and EOCs. Yes, ma'am.
EOCs. Okay. What's the difference then? What's the difference with iReady? Like why do the kids have that also? Because they do it seems like they're doing it's doing the same thing. I guess that's where I'm kind of confused.
Yes,
Right.
I think I can shed a little bit of light on that. So the EOGs, EOCs are summative. They're at the end of learning. So iReady is what we call a screener. It's intermittent, so teachers can make instructional decisions and find out and target exactly what our students need. So they're two different kinds of assessments for two different kinds of purposes.
Okay, that makes a little more sense. I was just curious. I didn't know why they were, because it just seemed like they both did the same thing. But I understand the EOGs in the beginning. What are the ones at the beginning?
We have the BOG in third grade, the beginning of your test.
That, yes, I'm sorry. I have elementary school. That's why I was curious. Okay.
No
Go
problem.
on. Thank you.
Okay, I'll be really quick. So you had said did you say there was 3,126 students that decided to do the retest?
Well, that was tests that were administered. So some kids, for example, let's say in fifth grade, if I was not proficient in all three, science, reading, and math, that could have been one student taking three retests. So it's not necessarily 3,126 students. It was 3,126 assessments.
But is that the number that chose to take the retest, or is that the total number that was eligible to take the retest?
Total number that came in to retest.
How many were eligible? Like, what's the net difference that didn't come in to do the retest?
I don't have that number for the district as a whole, but I have it for each individual school. And it ranges anywhere from about 10. We had one of our elementary schools, they retested 65% of the kids who were eligible to retest.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers are, they go anywhere from, here's another elementary school that had 50%. Middle school was about 23%, high school 22%. There were some that were a lot lower than that. I don't know the number for the district as a whole, but I did compute for each individual school.
Could we get a number for the district as a whole by student, not by, if one student failed all three, and that counts as three, and then you just send that to the committee? And then
Mhm.
which school you mentioned went from an F to a D? Which school was it?
I have in my notes, Benton Heights Elementary
Benton
School.
Heights.
Benton Heights Elementary School.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions? I need a motion to send this to the full board for approval.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our next meeting is March 22nd at 10 a.m. via Zoom. Need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.